and welcome to GameSack. Well, it's finally here, Paprium for your Sega Genesis and or Mega Drive. It's been over 8 years since this game began crowdfunding, and over the course of that time, Watermelon neglected to communicate much at all with their paying customers. And that's what the head of Watermelon, who goes by the name of Fonzie, thinks is the best way to do things. Anyway, despite his inept customer service skills, the game is indeed here. And I said if it actually ever got a release, I would dedicate an episode to it, and well, here we are. So let's start off by looking at the packaging among a few other things. First of all, if you want to know the controversies surrounding this game, check out the crowdfunding games episode. I'll leave a timestamp link in the description. Man, I hope I remember to do that. Anyway, here it is, Paprium. It really exists. Apparently I ordered 2 copies. Maybe one of them is Dave's, I can't remember because it's been 8 years. Dave can't remember either. This crappy cardboard one is the investor's version that only people who initially backed the game received. Looking on the back of the box, we're immediately told to F off. Classy. I absolutely hate this packaging with a fiery passion. It's extremely flimsy and it looks stupid. Opening it up, the cartridge area is crooked. Not sure if that's how it's supposed to be or if mine just got jacked during shipping. The cartridge fits in this little plastic thing and it's super tacky. The cartridge itself is pink. Then you have to unfold it a few times to get to the manual and a bunch of other stuff. Did I mention that I'm not really fond of this nonsense? It's a classic case of form over function. But hey, at least the manual here is taller than it is wide, and of course the printing quality of everything is outstanding. Watermelon always does an amazing job on their printed material. Also included with this edition of the game is a Dayton Meister logo pin, a postcard from Fonzie saying thanks for your 16-bit patience, a comic book which I haven't read, and a book called Size which has a lot of cool artwork and details about the making of the game. These are some cool extras, even if I only ever look at them once. It also comes with a thong, because Fonzie wanted to spend money on that, and this is the kind of things that he personally likes, I guess? Extra, extra small size. How did they know? All copies of the game come with a manifesto from Fonzie himself. I'd like to highlight a few sections here.
I, Fonzie, could be sorry for the wait and lack of news, but I already gave them away long ago.
What? Here he talks about running the game on a CRT versus anything that's not a CRT.
Don't assume your PS4's flat screen is a good fit. Most PS4 games run at half interlaced frame rates.
Okay, clearly he knows nothing about video. In the final section, he's talking about all of the money problems that he had during the project.
This resulted into a significantly higher unit cost, making every single game delivered to you at high loss.
Then why did you spend money making this thong that nobody wanted? And then there's the conclusion, but for that, let's do Literacy Corner.
Hello, and welcome back to Literacy Corner. Today, we will be reading the exciting conclusion to Fonzie's manifesto, included with each and every copy of Paprium for the Genesis and Mega Drive. So grab your copy of Fonzie's manifesto and read along. Conclusion. Would I do it again? Maybe, yes. To pursue the Sega 16-bit legacy, only new 16-bit games matters. Anything else is gadgets or commentaries. Again, a big thanks to everyone involved, customers and supporters. Don't listen to the mediocres. This is a rare achievement and a huge success. This game is there. That's all matters. Enjoy your play. Nota. On the good side, I got proof that pressure doesn't cause cancer. But I should also test for AIDS because this hurts. P.S. Sega, if you're reading, man up, call me. Bisous. Gwenaël Fonzie Goad. The 16th day of the 16th month of the year 2020.
The so-called classic version of Paprium, which was announced for pre-order in 2017, comes with a much cooler clamshell box. This version is significantly better because of the box alone. Unfortunately, the manual and the items inside easily fall out because they're too small to be secured by the tabs. The manual itself is the inferior horizontally formatted kind that is less rigid and is therefore more likely to fall out to begin with. You also get a map and some stickers. These things also come with the previously shown investor's copy. Upon handling the cartridge for the first time, I discovered that something was aggressively rattling inside of it. Nice! Opening it up, there's this metal piece that was covering this epoxied chipset. They are really trying hard to hide what's ever under here. Why are they so afraid? Anyway, Manjinga on the Sega16.com forums removed the epoxy and, well, here's what's underneath. Anyway, I just left the metal piece out of the cartridge and put it back together. It's not a heatsink and it's not needed. And yes, of course, both of the carts rattled. There's a jack on top of the cartridge which is for Watermelon's Mega Wire. This will allow you to upload your high scores and even get DLC in the future. Damn straight, bring a DLC to my Genesis, that's what every Sega fan wants. Oh, and by the way, this game has which is the biggest Genesis cartridge game there has ever been so far. Pretty cool. Okay, so the physical media is what it is, but what we care about most is the actual game, right? Well, I sure hope so. Anyway, a bit of a warning, there may be some minor spoilers in this, like me playing as some of the unlockable characters, so if that's an issue for you, then probably don't want to watch any further. Anyway, let's plug this thing in and see how it is. When Watermelon announced that Paprium was finally shipping, they put up an FAQ or FAQ or however you want to say that on their Magical Game Factory website. According to that, a lot of Genesis and Mega Drive models weren't compatible with the game for some reason, including mine. My game came in and I turned it on anyway and I got this. Haha, funny, right? Yeah, not so much to me. I literally thought that they had taken their time to make this minigame that would play on an incompatible console instead of, actually fixing whatever the issue was. No matter how long I played or even if I reset or got a game over, it would stay on this nonsense. I was starting to get a little pissed. Turns out if you power the game off and then find a reason to actually power it back up, you'll get the real Paprium. It'll work fine forever now because it has saved the fact that you've already experienced the minigame. Nice trolling there, Watermelon. That got me pretty good. Anyway, you're told the game story about how everything is ashes due to a nuclear war. There's a new city that's equidistant from Tokyo, Shanghai, and Pyongyang, and it's called Paprium. And that's it. For this reason, you need to go out and beat up the entire city. Going into the options screen, we have a couple of things to note. First, you'll want to make sure that the plus 6 dB gain is applied so that the voices and whatnot are louder. This will make the game sound more like an arcade with louder yells and things, and to me that just makes the game more exciting. The YMDAC option disables the Daytonmeister chip from making sound from what I understand, and instead makes the Genesis responsible for everything you hear, at least the voices and stuff. This is useful if you're playing the game on an unmodified Nomad, for example. I'll talk more about the Daytonmeister later in this very video. The We Sucks option disables friendly fire, which I highly recommend. But you get a dish of 90s tude since the game thinks that you suck if you disable that. If you have a Sega CD attached, a CPU made option appears that you can enable. More on that in a bit. At the beginning, you can choose from 3 different characters, each of which plays differently and has their own minor advantages. And the game is a beat 'em up. Each character has a punch and a jump. If you attack while you're in the air, you'll do a jump kick. There aren't a ton of moves for each character, at least not many that I can find, but it's enough to get the job done. Button A makes you take a blue pill. This drug will allow you to do some better moves using your regular attack button. It causes more damage to the enemies while it lasts, which is usually between 10 or 15 seconds or so. Above your life bar, you can see how many pills you have as well as the bar that shows how long the effects are lasting. According to the manual, if you use this too much, you can become addicted to the blue pills. Part of your life bar is blue, and this shows how addicted you are. When your life gets down into this blue area, you're not doing very well. Some moves like blocks and specials won't be quite as effective. Sometimes there will be branching paths to take, and using this you'll make it to the end of one of the game's many paths. There's a ton of overall stages to play through here, make no mistake. And yes, of course there's an elevator stage. Several, in fact. Can't have a proper beat 'em up without an elevator stage. After you beat a boss of one of the paths, you can choose to throne yourself. You become the king of that area and unplayable until you unthrone yourself. It also changes the last stage of that path since the previous final boss has been defeated. There are a lot of secret areas to find, many of which seem to rely on blind luck. Like here, I suddenly appeared in this stage and I had no idea how I got here. Sometimes you'll come across doors or locks that you can bash, but no matter what you do, you cannot bust them open. So you might as well ignore these every time in the future you play through this stage again, right? That's originally what I thought. It turns out that you need to wait until all of the enemies are defeated and the game is telling you to move on before you can bust open a hidden area. Actually though, that's not always true. The game will sometimes just not let you access hidden areas for some cryptic reason or another. It's hard to say what this game wants from you. And you'll have to find these areas to get the hidden characters. And you'll need those characters to get to the new levels. And you'll need to get through those levels to get to the true ending. Speaking of endings, the bad endings here are really bad. Bad as in lazy. They're not a ton better than the ending for Shinobi on the Master System. And here's Shinobi's ending, by the way. The game offers a save feature which keeps track of your play. It's funny, because I died here and elected not to continue, but I saved my game. Later, when I came back and resumed my save, it started me way down here, which I had never been to before. And your first order of business is to beat this path, because otherwise you'll be stuck down here until you do. Also, once you truly beat the game, getting the best ending, the save file becomes locked and unplayable. That is pretty dumb. There are only 3 save slots, so if you truly beat the game 3 times, all you have is the arcade mode unless you delete the saves, which also deletes any goodies you've unlocked. Watermelon has never really been known for decent save design decisions. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention that there's an arcade mode that you can play through, which you can't use your save feature and you can't choose paths, but it's there. Often, the AI in the game is pretty dumb. Sometimes they'll just stand there and literally do nothing at all. Or, if you stand there and do nothing, the enemy will walk right into your hands, placing themselves into a hold. Even bosses sometimes don't even bother to fight back. At all. Look at that. Sometimes the enemy literally can't kill you even though you're close to death and you keep getting hit and you're not blocking them at all. I mean, look how many of these little aliens there are, and I keep getting hit, and I have no life. Sometimes an enemy or even a boss will get stuck off screen and forget what to do. This obviously is a bug in the enemy behavior because you can feel how they fixed it. If the enemy is still alive and off screen for too long, it'll just drop back into the center of the screen, allowing for the fight to continue. Hey, I'll take it. It's certainly better than not fixing it at all. There's plenty of weapons to pick up and use, as well as food to restore your health and items for points. All but the 2 characters you unlock can use the weapons. There are also many different things that you can ride and use as weapons. My favorite is beating one of these flying enemies. Then you put on its robot corpse and use it to bash people. The punches from this thing are crazy strong and can take out most enemies with ease. Speaking of ease, I found that you can just spam jump kicks back and forth throughout the game. Most enemies can't defend against this at all, and it keeps you mobile and airborne. The biggest threats are the little aliens on the ground, or accidentally grabbing and holding someone, which is tough to get out of. Even the bosses are powerless against jump kicks. It can take a little bit longer to defeat them this way, but it works. The game uses hex codes instead of numbers for everything. Your score, the ages of characters, everything. Nothing necessarily bad or great about that, I just thought I'd mention it. If you have a Sega CD attached and the CPU mate enabled in the options, pressing start on the second controller will give you a CPU buddy. The Sega CD controls the second player for you, and you both fight your way through the game as if you were really playing with another human. The Sega CD doesn't do badly at all as the second player. You may remember that Final Fight 3 on the Super Nintendo had a similar feature. You didn't need to attach a Sega CD to the Super Nintendo to do this. The Super Nintendo was powerful enough to do it on its own. Does that mean the Super Nintendo is more powerful than Paprium? Anyway, the AI player in Final Fight 3 was nowhere near as good as this one here is. So at least there's that. The game feels great to play, and even better than many commercially released games back in the day. It doesn't play like an amateur effort at all, and the same could be said with Pure Solar back when it came out. The game never crashed on me at all. Seems to work perfectly fine, at least for me. The characters feel fairly solid as you play. Sometimes it can get a little boring as you just want a stage to move on, but mostly I'd say that the gameplay will definitely be a positive experience for most people who enjoy beat-em-ups. So now we know how the game plays and what it's all about. But in this next section, I want to focus on the 80 meg graphics and especially the 80 meg audio, as they're both promised to be something very special for the console. Let's see what this game does. The graphics are really good and have a mostly unique style to them. The characters and backgrounds all look great, and there are quite a few different enemy types. Some of them look rather, well, interesting.
Did you just say tits?
Sometimes they're just out shopping, minding their own business, and you still beat them up. That's not very nice. Still, there are a ton of palette-swapped sprites here. This game really puts a crap ton of sprites on screen all at once. Seriously, it's very easy to lose yourself sometimes in all the action. I'm blown away by how many sprites they can put on there without any slowdown at all. You will see some flickering or tearing in the sprites from time to time. That is to be expected though, and it's not a deal breaker by any means. Look closely and you might even find yourself fighting other game platforms. There's a lot of detail and variety in all of the backgrounds. Like here, where the walls say, "Plies figgeth out Sid." Sounds like a reasonable request. On top of that, there's also some pretty nice scrolling effects with foreground graphics in almost every area. The muted colors remind me of something that Sega of America might do. They look more like Batman Returns and Eternal Champions than something bold and bright like Streets of Rage 2. Still, the style serves this game well and helps give it more of a cyberpunk feel. It even has modern features like these ray-traced reflections off of the subway windows. Eat your heart out, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Okay, obviously that's not ray tracing, but it still looks really cool. The animation is mostly fine, but I feel it could use a few more frames here and there. Like this low kick, which only has one frame and feels stiff as a result. This cartridge has Watermelon's Dayton Meister add-on chip inside. They claim that it's their own custom chip, but the jury's still out on that. Regardless, the cartridge does have a chip in it, and it assists the game in a few ways. First, it supposedly helps decompress the data on the cartridge quickly. And it also helps with these small scaling things that happen from time to time. I'm surprised they used a chip for this, as it's slower and choppier than I've seen the Genesis do on its own. Still, it adds to the cool visual aura of the game. I especially like seeing the blocky characters run around in the foreground and then show up in your area to get their asses kicked. The sound quality is, well, it's spectacular. The Dayton Meister mainly helps in this area, adding more sound channels of better quality. Think of it like Konami's VR6 chips on the Famicom, where it made Castlevania 3 sound super extra awesome and all that. There are a ton of music tracks composed by David Burton, aka Groovemaster 303, and Trevin Hughes, aka J-Red, and most of them are outstanding. But don't worry, there are a couple of middle-of-the-road tracks here for you to enjoy as well. The more I listened to the music, the more I liked it. One interesting thing that they did was to adjust the key that the music is playing in when you get to a new area of that same stage. Seems kind of weird at first, but after a few seconds, it's the new normal. The music even becomes out of tune and a bit messed up when you're close to death. The music is slightly inspired by Streets of Rage here and there, but mostly it's its own thing. However, I really like the Shenmue remix in this area. Some of the music even sounds like instruments that you'd hear on the Neo Geo. There are a ton of voices shouting all over the place. The announcer will warn you of things like a boss approaching. I can't really understand much of what he yells though. Oh well, it all still sounds cool and it makes the game feel more exciting and full of energy. There are a few other voices made by the enemies and whatnot. Most of the sound effects are adequate. Unfortunately, not all of them. The punching and attack sounds are very soft, kind of like you're punching a thick pillow. Streets of Rage 2 had incredible attack sounds. Here, they lack impact, and it makes all of your attacks feel soft and less satisfying. It's certainly not game-breaking or anything, though. The good news is that there are some areas where the sounds have reverb. So if you're a Super Nintendo fan, the reverb will definitely win you over and you will be loving life. Remember that YM-DAC toggle in the options screen? Well, here's what the game sounds like with it off, which is default. And here's what it sounds like when you trigger that on, which makes the Genesis responsible for more of the sound. Overall, the audio-visual experience of this game is top-notch, as it should be for an 80 megabit cartridge. That's 10 megabytes, by the way. Fonzie claims on his website that this is equivalent to a 256 or a 512 meg Neo Geo cartridge. Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. Maybe a 100 meg Neo Geo cartridge. Released with Paprium is the Grand Stick 3 Joystick, also from Watermelon. The Grand Stick 1 and 2 were complete disasters, everyone on the planet knows that. But the hefty Grand Stick 3 here, after long last, finally gets it right. This joystick is very comfortable to use. There's just enough room to rest your hand while you're using the stick, I like that. The A button lights up when you have a blue pill ready to use. The stick also emits random sounds from the game whenever you get knocked down when you're playing. How they're able to do this over the Genesis's basic-ass Atari joystick connector is beyond me. The C button squeaks a little from time to time, but it's never unresponsive. There are dip switches underneath to change things around or even turn it into a regular 6-button stick without any frills. You can hook up another controller to this port, but it only acts as a duplicate, not player 2 or anything, so I'm not sure why this is here. No joke though, this is the best joystick I've ever used for the Genesis. It's not cheap, but if you like joysticks, it's definitely worth considering. As I said earlier, the game was purported not to be compatible with many real Genesis consoles. It worked with each and every one of my consoles, including my launch unit that I got back in the day, my Model 1 VA2. It also worked with my Model 1 VA3, Model 1 VA6, a Model 2 VA1 with a Mega Amp installed, and a Model 2 VA4 which was modded for S-Video and a region bypass. If it's true that some revisions of real Genesises or Mega Drives don't work, then that is a true shame. Can it even be called a real Genesis game if it doesn't work with all the official versions of the console that came before it? Oh, and it won't work with Analog's Mega SG either. You'll be able to play the minigame, but it has different colors and sounds. On the Mega SG, it looks and sounds like this. But on my kick-ass launch unit Genesis Model 1 VA2, it looks and sounds like this. Not that this minigame matters in the least, I just thought that the differences were interesting. In fact, it almost makes me think that Fonzie locked the Mega SG out in the software on purpose. It totally seems like something he'd do, and if he did, that is not cool at all. His response to people asking him why it won't work on their Mega SG is pretty laughable, telling people to just go get real consoles and all the things required to play them like a CRT. Bad, Fonzie. Bad. Well, there you go, Paprium. I'm glad it finally came out, and I'm glad it's definitely awesome. However, Fonzie and Watermelon continuously dropped the ball during the game's development, especially when it came to communicating with people. And honestly, that's unforgivable, definitely not cool. But let's say you didn't have any involvement with the game's pre-order. Is it worth the $130 that it's selling for now? Well, maybe. I mean, I'd probably do it if I had to, but that's why I made this review, to see if, you like the game or you like what you see well enough to plunk down that kind of cash, and that is a lot of cash. And I'd like to see it work with Omega SG, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was ported to modern consoles sometime in the future. Well, unless they hate money, that is. Anyway, what do you think of Paprium? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. Banished from Earth, Plastic Game Room broadcast from the intergalactic room in GameSack's basement on its never-ending mission to review Paprium. Yes, Paprium is a new game for the mighty Sega Genesis. Crowdfunded in 2012 and arriving just in time for the future year of 2021, Paprium is a beat-em-up game where you smash people with your fists and do drugs. I like this game already. You can choose from 3 characters to beat up everyone in the city in this 80 meg brawl fest from Watermelon Games. And yes, I know it's pronounced Paprium, like pap smear, but this game sells for $130, which is a premium price. You'll pay a premium to play Paprium. And I have a Plastic Game Room shout out and thank you to go to Fonzie. Hey! For only taking 8 years.